I don't think of you as being a shy person. I know you've been nude in several films.
Yeah.
Was that ever hard?
Sorry? Well, actually, darling, that was interesting, wasn't it? Right. No,
Was that ever difficult for you to do?
no, it's always been absolutely valid, you know. I've never kind of done it just for the sake of it. Although I've enjoyed doing it all the time. You know, there was a trend, I suppose, in the 80s of, or I think in the 80s, of terrible kind of gratuitous sex scenes, and where women were always seen naked and men never were. So I just thought I was kind of doing it for the sisters, you know. I thought, well, I'll be naked, and then the girl won't be. So I like that, and there's something quite naughty about it, and I always enjoy that. I did have an erection once doing a love scene, and I'm sure she won't mind me saying this, Alice Krieg and I were doing this love scene in Scarlet and Black, which was the television period drama. So it was my character's first time. It was his first sexual encounter, and I lie on top of her, and we start making love. And as we're making love, the camera pulls back to wide, so we're full length now. Now they wanted to see my bottom, my bare bottom, and they wanted to see her bare thigh. So we couldn't wear any underwear. Now, as I lay down on top of her, gravity took over the situation. So, and as we were, the motions of, well, I'm a boy, and there we go. So they called cut, and I looked at her, and I said, I'm terribly sorry. And she told me not to worry about it, and I backed onto a bed, and they went, right, let's just go for one more straight away. And I went, no, I think we'll go for another one in a minute or two, thanks.
Oh, God.
It was very embarrassing. But those things can happen, you know.
The robbery episode. I was glad. That
Excellent.
That was kind of different. Why did you decide to do that?
I loved ER. I love ER. But I loved it more then. It's funny, something about doing something when you see backstage, even as you know, I've been on a lot of film sets and stuff, but still knowing that kind of those rooms and the way they use the rooms with the Steadicams and the two operating theatres and the layout of it so well, somehow being on it and seeing it for what it is and realising that it's a, you know, there are cameras and lights, even for the experienced actor, still takes some of the shine off it now. It's a shame, isn't it? But I did it purely because I loved the show. Usually they film in the studio here in LA and they go to Chicago, I believe, you know, and shoot maybe 3 or 4 episodes, exteriors there. However, we did the whole thing there, except for a couple of days here. It was very exciting for me in many ways. I mean, it felt different. It was very, very fast. You know, it's a very well-oiled crew. I wasn't used to that, and I liked that, being kept on the go all day long. I was doing this thing about, you know, on the last couple of days in the studios here with tubes and blood and tubes and machines and stuff, and then had to rush back to London to see my little baby in the real situation, you know. Which was a nightmare. She got meningitis.
He was in LA and he had to wait 16 hours, I think, before he got a flight. I remember him talking about being in this hotel room all night and not being there.
So that was very hard. It was very difficult. It was the longest flight I ever took in my life, that's for sure. I've always been stopped in customs, you know, because I just looked like someone who was, I don't know, used to always get in trouble. I got off that plane, and all I had to do was to get in a car to get to the hospital to see my baby and my wife. And I got off into customs, and I must just have looked like a man who was going to kill somebody if they stopped me. And they didn't. I went straight through and in the car. But I'll remember that, going through, just looking, saying, thinking, if you stop me, I can't be responsible for what I might do, you know. It was an awful nightmare, and I wouldn't wish it on anybody. It's a terrible thing that you would hope never to experience. The very real risk of losing your kid is not something that takes a long time to get over, you know. Nasty. Nasty.
Well, she's great now.
She's fine now, and that's brilliant. And she's got a little sister now, who she adores, and that's really lovely. For a long time in the tabloid press in Britain, it said Ewan McGregor, heroin addict, was yesterday, you know. So I was kind of labelled a heroin addict. But I don't think seriously. The only time I had that was, unfortunately, in America. I was coming to do an episode of ER, and I arrived at Chicago Airport, and I had a Warner Brothers visa in my passport, and the guy looked at it and he went, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "Well, I'm an actor. I've come to do this television show in Chicago called ER." And he went, right. What do I know you from?" And I went, "Well, at that time," I said, "the only film that I've done that's been here would be Trainspotting." And he went, "Oh yeah." And he wrote something on my thing. And then I went to the next, you know, I don't know what the customs system is here. I went to the next bit and gave them this bit of paper that he'd given me, and they went, "Oh yeah, you need to go over there." And I was walking towards the red bit, and the green bit was over there, and I thought, it's weird. So I got over there, and they had every single thing out of my bag. They took me to a room and strip searched me, and
really, I think he wrote Ewan McGregor, heroin addict.
Well, he associated that film and just imagined that I would be carrying a lot of heroin.
That's odd.
Stupid.
I had a photograph taken in my underpants with my dad, standing with my dad on Bondi Beach in Australia, laughing. It's a brilliant moment, but it was in a magazine, and it was our brilliant moment, you know.
Yeah.
It was a moment that my father and I shared on the beach, and it just feels wrong that it's taken away and put in a magazine. And the unfortunate thing is that more and more of the media is only geared on this, you know. It's now mainly what sells that kind of magazine, and it's kind of alright until it starts involving my kids, and then that's not alright with me, because as a father, I have the right, and I should have the right, to protect my children, right? There's no doubt about that. Now, it may be hugely paranoid of me or whatever, but I don't want people knowing what they look like. My wee girl's 5.5, she should be a wee 5.5-year-old, and shouldn't have to worry about camera guys following her around. So when they print, for instance, they printed a whole page of a tabloid newspaper in England of me and my daughter flying a kite in a park one Sunday afternoon, and she's like this big in the photograph, I think, well, now people know what she looks like, and effectively you've taken away my right to protect her. That's what they've done, and legally they're allowed to do it. And legally they make a lot of money out of it too. So I resent them very much, and I resent very much people's opinion that we deserve it somehow, because we're film stars or pop stars or whatever people are, that we deserve to have our privacy taken away. I don't go with that. I didn't join that queue or sign that, you know, that deal.
Right.
So I think something should change about it. I mean, I really believe it should change for children. I think that should just be illegal. There should be no doubt about that.
And then when Danny came to you to talk about Trainspotting, were you in immediately?
Well, they did this funny thing where they never like tell you that it's yours, right? They gave me the script in Sundance, and still it was like, we're not offering you the part, but just read the script and let us know what you think. So I started reading Trainspotting, and it's like a terrible moment when you realise that this part has to be mine, you know. It's terrible because there's a lot riding on it then. And I kept turning the pages going, oh my God, better and better and better. And it really was one of those very rare moments where you read the leading part of your dreams, you know.
And you really transformed yourself. You lost close to 30 pounds.
Yeah, I don't know about pounds, 2 stone. I don't know what that is. And we still kind of work in stones. 1 stone, 2 stones. I lost 2 big stones.
Yeah. But I mean, you really took it on to have that kind of, it was that heroin
chic. It's very important.
Yeah.
It wasn't heroin chic for me, it was heroin addict. And for me, that was really important. Danny made it clear that he wanted me to really get skinny and thin and wasted. And I went about doing that, and he didn't see me for quite a while then. And then when I met him the next time, he was quite taken aback by how much weight I'd lost. And then we decided that day to have my hair shaved off for it and stuff. It was a very specific look, that sequence at the beginning where he's in his vest smoking and bending over backwards, which I saw a guy doing. I saw a heroin addict doing that in a train station in Luxembourg when I was making Pillow Book. I used to go to the train station to watch the addicts down there and see what they did, and I watched this guy, and in Scotland it's called gouching, I don't know what they call it here, but where a heroin addict kind of just goes, and he was going forward and forward and forward, and then he could catch himself, and he was having an argument with the guy, and then he would disappear again, and then he went backwards until he was lying flat on the ground, you know. And I just thought it was such an amazing thing to see. It was so bizarre. Like his body was keeping balance and everything, but it was just the weirdest thing I'd ever seen. I thought, we've got to try and get that in the film.
I think he's attracted to the dark side because he loves exploring the dark side of people's psyche and the dark side of their life in order to taste it and experience it.